I probably took a bullet to the head because of...
He's blaming her for the Republican that took a shot at him.
The threat to democracy with a fake Russia investigation.
She's got him. She's in his head. She's in his head. So they're going with the, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Asking Kamala. She's doing the middle class thing. It's all about the middle class.
Housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give
small businesses $50,000 tax deduction for startups,
knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax.
So she's characterizing his
on everyday
tariffs as a sales tax, which in effect, that's what it is. It's going to add cost to the
tax would actually result for middle class
to what people have to pay. Yeah, $4,000 more a year for median
of his policies and his ideas about
American worker.
The backs of middle class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no...
He's like, there's no sales tax. She knows this.
We're doing tariffs on other countries.
It's going to be tariffs on other countries.
After 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because it was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking.
I wonder if Trump's previous tariffs had anything to do with the
when I had it,
rise in prices.
No inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation has...
TYT is garbage, says Germ.
It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental...
Oh my God, we got the mental institutions. We got these insane asylums. Who's going to take your job?
Right now by African Americans.
Who's going to take the black jobs? Hannibal Lecter.
Unions are going to be affected very soon, and you see what's happening. You see what's happening.
So yeah, he's not going to say Hannibal Lecter. He's like learned not to do that.
You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns.
They're taking over the towns. They're taking over the cities.
Violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous.
So, if you've watched his interviews recently, you've noticed that he pivots to immigration and to Afghanistan. And already, the question was, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And he's already on immigration. She's responding to him.
Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since
pinning it on him. What did he leave us with?
The worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our
Now, I'm noticing
since
the mics,
Civil
okay?
War.
And this might seem like a silly thing to do,
Donald Trump's mess, what we
but
have done, and what I
I'm hearing
is build
her
what
saliva.
we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people.
I don't
I'm
know.
going to tell y'all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook. A bunch
I don't know
of lies,
how that's going to play.
grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detail.
I mean, at least she's hydrated.
Called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing. If
Okay, so
he
we're
were
back to
elected.
Project 2025.
I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump, will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with.
He has nothing to do with Project 2025.
That's out there. I haven't read it.
I haven't read
don't
it.
want to read it purposely.
He's like a streamer. Like, I haven't pre-watched.
Got together, they came up with some ideas. I guess some good.
There's some ideas in there, some good, some
I
bad.
have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest.
What's weird, though, is that people remember the years between 2017 and 2019
100 million people died.
as being good, and yeah, compared to right after that, they were. They don't remember 2020, and they don't remember before 2017, and they don't remember that that economy was good and actually better under Obama.
We made ventilators for the entire world.
Talking about, we got ventilators, we got gowns, we got things that nobody thought possible.
And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot.
Did he say masks, though? Is he going to try to... He's not giving me credit for the great job I did.
And it bounced back.
So he's saying that jobs just bounced back.
I was the one that created that.
I created the jobs, but they bounced back when Biden got into office.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy
She's
worse.
quoting Goldman Sachs
What the Wharton
and the Wharton
has said
School,
is
his
Donald
alma
Trump's
mater.
plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump.
So she needs to get him talking.
Because he is
That's going to be her best bet. Get him talking.
Looking out for you.
Oh, he's interrupting.
I gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of
Yes,
those
talk about
professors,
Wharton.
the top professors,
She's got him.
I think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our.
So he's saying the professors at Wharton actually like my plan.
People want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for.
Get him talking. Yes, 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 yes.
To finish off. She doesn't have a plan.
So
she copied
the mics are muted.
and it's like four.
Oh, she's looking at him. She's giving him the incredulous look. Oh, ooh.
Sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to
So here's what happens, right? The mics are muted, but if somebody starts to talk and they think it's interesting, they can turn the mics back
Your
on.
plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here.
And we've seen it work at the first time. We've seen her game plan, right?
Double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many
So she's gotten him talking.
at that level cost
She gave him the bait. The bait was Wharton Business School. That's about him. That's his alma mater,
food,
right?
clothing, medication, arguing it
And he
costs
kinda-
people
he kinda went off.
$4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars. And
Work Appropriate says Trump looks so depressed.
She doesn't like him. They should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal.
So they're asking about his tariffs.
The people of our country are,
and if their tariffs aren't going to raise the prices.
They've destroyed the economy.
And he's like, the tariffs are on other countries, not on us.
80 and 85 and even 90.
They're the ones with inflation.
The Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit.
Trade deficit, yes, that's true.
He invited trade.
So he fucked around and he found out.
Deal with China. What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military.
Ooh, she's saying that he sold us out to China.
The policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies.
So she's gone into a little bit more depth than he was willing to. He just wants to say, I'm on tariffs, I'm going to charge this other country. She said, you started a trade war and you lost that trade war and you sold China chips.
So that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick.
He sold us out.
In terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump
Get him mad. Get him talking.
With COVID, is
now we're on
he
COVID.
actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi! Exclamation point. When we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of
jeez.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies.
Oh, she's talking. She's talking.
I would say her because she has no policy.
No, they have her muted, though.
That she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics.
Oh, she's doing this shit right here.
When you look
she's
at
doing
what
this.
she's done to our country, and when
Really,
you look at
Donald?
these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say. And I think
So he's disputing immigration rates, saying that they're 21 million, not 15 million, based on
doing to our country.
vibes.
Criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals, and that's bad for our economy too. You know, you mentioned.
So they're criminals, and that's bad for our economy.
Is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with.
He's a little pissed. He's a little pissed. She seems like she's vibing.
They have to hate our country.
Thank you, President Trump.
Thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade.
Okay, abortion.
Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration...
They're calling him out on his duplicity in terms of taking credit for Roe versus Wade, but then trying to distance himself.
Because you initially had said that it was too short, and you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6 week
So I anticipate her being asked a similar question about her views in 2020. Right? They're going to ask consistency question. You said this then, and now you say this.
The reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote.
He seems a little rattled.
Abortion in the
I could be wrong.
They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before.
So the side to side's working out pretty well. Here, let me see if I can give you a...
In other words,
the execution of the babies. Let me see if I can give you a picture of Kamala.
The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But
This
her
is
vice
good.
presidential
This
pick
is
says
good.
Abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth.
He is literally claiming that Tim Walz says execution after birth is okay.
Okay with me. Hence the vote. But what I did is something for
Here, let me give you the new.
2 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade.
You're gonna like this.
into the
All right,
states. And through the
check this out.
genius and heart and strength
Ooh,
of 6
Ooh.
Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe
He's not off balance yet, but he's close.
85% of Republicans do. Exceptions.
His eyebrows are doing a
We
thing.
were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal.
So he's saying he just sent it back to the
But
states.
each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage.
Harris is looking down at him. Yeah.
Great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
Miska says he's not off balance yet.
It is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
But that's close. I hope she can push him over.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not.
She's calling him a liar, which he is.
Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected.
Here we go. Here we go.
States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now
She's
in
pinning
over
the-
20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body.
He's making some interesting faces now.
About what happens to their body.
I think he's trying to keep it together.
And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail.
She's
and she's
pinning-
out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term.
She's pinning the lack of exceptions that some states have instituted that resulted in
When Congress passes a bill to put
not
back
being
in
able to
place
treat people that are
protections of Roe v. Wade,
miscarrying.
as president
She's pinning that on him.
I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his project.
Okay, so we got Project 2025, national abortion ban,
Monitor that would be monitoring
pregnancy
your
monitors,
pregnancies
national
or miscarriages.
abortion or
I think
national
Americans
pregnancy monitors.
believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Okay, so far I'm going to say
Well, there she goes again. It's a
she's
lie.
winning.
I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign
Not
a
by
ban,
much.
because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states. And the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart. And
This would be a good time for her to break in.
and I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well, I
to your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how
he's trying to use the failure to forgive student loans against her.
Their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate,
Okay, so he flipped it over and said she can't get the vote on a national.
Well, I didn't discuss
on a
it with JD.
national Roe versus Wade.
And I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't.
But he won't answer the question about a national abortion ban.
Discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it.
I'm not sure how this plays.
Out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people.
So there are people that blame Biden.
Time to respond, but I do want to ask: would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
For the student loan thing not going through, even though it is the courts and.
You rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and in asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America.
So she's calling him on his bullshit.
It's been happening under Donald Trump's abortion
As far as nobody would carry a pregnancy to term and then just happen to get an abortion.
Denied IVF treatment.
I want to see her
What is happening in our
pin him down on the execution of babies
women
lie.
who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is.
Now he brought up student loans, and she hasn't latched onto that.
To go and get the health care.
It's probably bad to fall him down his rabbit holes, but now she kind of has to.
Who are putting her through is unconscionable, and the people of America.
She kind of has to respond at some point.
Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why, in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization.
She shouldn't touch student loans. They weren't the success that people wanted. Well, it's
allow abortion
it's in play now.
9th month, 7th month.
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer
That's
the
problem.
question? Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question,
you
would you
could
veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the former governor of.
See, this is what you get when you let him go on.
Put the baby aside, and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn
Okay, she kind of got shafted on.
security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President
Now we're on
Biden
immigration.
to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill.
Yeah, she kind of can't talk about the student loan thing.
That bill would have put 1,500 more
Because if she does, then she's getting distracted.
working there right now, overtime, trying to do their job.
Like, that's not even what the question was. He just tried to use that as she's not going to get a national bill passed on Roe versus Wade, just like she didn't get
by the
student loans.
in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations.
What's annoying about Trump and MAGA in general?
But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised.
She's calling him out before he even does it on...
to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about...
Oh, yes, Hannibal Lecter, she brought him up.
He will talk about...
The windmills cause cancer.
And what you will also notice is that people start leaving...
People leave his rallies. Oh, there we go, there we go. There, get him mad, get him mad.
And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first. And I pledge.
Okay, so the annoying thing about MAGA is that like anytime somebody gets, oh, he's gonna respond.
Let me just ask though, why did you try to kill that bill and successfully so that would have put thousands?
Ask him why did he kill that bill? No, he's gonna respond first.
She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go.
She's got him. She's got him. She's got him.
And paying them to be there.
Ooh, so good. Yes.
She can't talk about that. People don't
leave my rallies. We have the best rallies. Nobody leaves my rallies.
That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III.
So he's rambling now. World War III out of nowhere and then just back.
Millions and millions of people
now immigration, just like she predicted. He's gonna talk about immigration this whole night, even when it's not the subject.
Springfield. A lot of towns
Springfield.
don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield,
they're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats.
They're eating the cats. They're eating
the pets.
The pets of the people
Hannibal Lecter.
that live there. And this is what's
oh my God.
And it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring.
I think she's doing okay.
Make America great again. It's a very simple phrase. Make America great again.
She's put some points on the board.
This country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, will end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want
anyway, what I was trying to say, chat, is that they... Anytime Democrats leave somebody behind, Republicans notice, and they get something out of it. Even if they're not going to do anything for those people, like student loans, they're going to do shit on that. But they remind people of that disappointment. They remind people that they were left behind. And some low information people are like, oh, I guess maybe Donald Trump's going to do something about my student loans. He's not.
Saying the dog was eaten by...
The dog was eaten by the people.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no
fact check.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
Talk about
extreme. Oh, she did a little bit of a weird laugh there.
You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans.
Okay, she's pissing him off again.
With President Bush, Mitt Romney.
I've got the endorsement of all these Republicans. She's pissing me off too.
The endorsement of
bragging about Dick Cheney. Oh yeah, the great.
Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know,
Liz Cheney got him pissed though.
On who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States.
Oh, she brought up General Kelly.
Security advisor has said
I think Millie Kelly, I can't remember who said that.
His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the Republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond
Yeah.
here.
Let's go. Let's go.
When I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people whose were just killed viciously and
Now
violently killed.
he brings up the 13 people that died in the withdrawal.
They should have fired all those generals, all those.
I want her to bring up the 67 people that died in Afghanistan under him.
Anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper, he was no good, I fired him, so he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me they can write books, with nobody else
With nobody else, they can write books?
They have done such a poor job, and they never
Kamala's fucking him up, yeah.
Look at the economy, look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists, they have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far.
Oh.
In fact, I got more votes than any sitting president in history by far.
Oh, she should have said, and you still lost, and you still lost.
Talk about earlier,
And still you lost. Oh my God. Now she's probably muted, right? So it wouldn't come through.
President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof, despite their fraudulent statements that they made.
He's claiming that crime is up. Crime was up for a few years around the lockdown, but it's way down now.
The FBI says overall violent
They fact-checked him.
coming down in this country. But
Excuse me, the FBI defrauded.
The FBI's defrauding statements.
They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs.
Okay, now he's saying that the crime numbers and the job numbers are frauds.
So rich. And let's be clear, where each person stands.
She really should have brought up,
What is important about respect
like he
for the
probably
rule of
thinks
law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called
the votes are fraudulent too.
federal law enforcement 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one
So
of those
what I'm
cases
really looking
was
for
involved with
is
the DOJ, from
to see
Atlanta
his
and
face
Barney
turn
Wilson
red.
to the,
If she
Attorney
gets
General
gets
of
his
New York,
face red,
the
he
DA,
loses.
Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization.
It's being appealed.
It's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of...
You got to get him to deny the election results.
Let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in
He's like,
2024 is taking place.
oh, he does look
United States
upset.
Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he...
So she's doing the prosecutor thing. She's turning this into a court case. And he doesn't like it.
Because certainly we know now
He's a little red.
J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice President
stop
Harris,
him.
Thank you.
President Harris,
He wants to interrupt.
run for president.
Weaponized, please.
We gotta
This is the
continue.
one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of...
He's
the things
blaming
that they say
her
about
for
me. They
his...
talk about democracy.
the Republican that took a shot at him.
They're the threat to democracy
President
with a fake
Trump.
Russia investigation.
She's got him. She's in his head. She's in his head.
President Harris, in your last run for
She's
president,
in there.
you said you wanted to ban fracking.
Okay, so now they're making her. Now they're bringing up stuff that she's changed her mind on fracking.
Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States, and in fact, I will
Why is she-
the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opens
That's the one way that she could say that she had something to do with fracking as a vice president is the tiebreaker vote. Wow.
Energy, so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value
She
that I
brought up
bring
his
to my
bankruptcies.
work to say we are going to work with the private sector. And
Yeah, this is what she's got to do. Pivot to
3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My
pivot to
work
stuff about him.
is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name-calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well, first of
response?
all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens.
It technically is
I
a.
learned a lot from him, but I was given a fraction of that.
Ooh,
tiny fraction.
he's defending.
Built it into many, many
He's
billions of
defending
dollars,
his
many billions.
bankruptcy, his inheritance,
They are even
the
surprised.
silver spoon that he was
we don't
born
have to
with.
talk about that. Fracking? She's been against it for 12 years.
He actually started off defensive. Now he's on fracking.
She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now.
Oh, he did the I'm talking now. Does that sound familiar? Oh wait, they're gonna let her out. They almost unmuted her.
Went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal
She wants to
aliens that
do
are in prison. This is a
transgender
radical
operations on
left.
illegal aliens that are in prison.
She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing, so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling.
I don't know how that's gonna play.
So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election,
Like,
the
she
day
started
after that
talking.
election, they'll go back to destroying our
He said, "I'm
country.
talking now." Does that sound familiar?
We'll be dead. We'll go back to
They did start to unmute her, but you couldn't hear her say anything. So it sounded like she wasn't really saying anything, but you saw her talking. I don't know how that's going to play.
President Trump, we have a lot of issues that we have to get to. We're out of time. Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th,
January 6th.
to march to the Capitol, you said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people.
So now Ashley Babbitt was
I ask,
possibly trying to kill members of Congress.
that she allowed to pour in. She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar.
I don't know if there's a good way to bring that up, but
because she's embarrassed by
literally crawling through a window to try to get to members of Congress to do them harm.
Bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries
He's back to
all over the world,
immigration.
not just South America?
They're coming in from all over, folks. Hannibal Lecter.
The world, David, all over the world, and crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David? When are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle, they went into Seattle, they took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it.
6 officers died in Gen 6. I think it was like technically they...
I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected.
There's some technicality that he's trying to hang it on.
It was just 2 weeks ago, her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there.
I forgot that she would have been there, yeah.
The President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
Okay, so that's going to piss him off too.
Remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, the
his
militia,
eyes are like watery.
the president said, the former president said,
Not like he's crying, but
So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about.
Chat, I wonder if would we see him going red,
the outcome, and be clear,
or is his makeup?
on that point, Donald Trump, the candidate,
Would his makeup
has
cover
said
that?
In this election, there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business.
What?
That was where bloodbath was.
Oh,
Also,
that didn't come off well.
that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham.
He's bringing up Laura Ingraham and Sean Hannity as like, they covered it and they said that
If they
wasn't.
go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked.
Sean Hannity's debunked it. Every newspaper has debunked it.
Just like they bring 2020.
Sadly, though, Snopes did. That was a major L for Snopes.
Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down.
Shadowfile says if Trump loses, he goes to prison. That's why he's crying.
Let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically.
that.
You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them Republican.
No judge looked at it.
And said
they
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread
standing.
fraud.
That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter, because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people.
Ooh.
So let's be clear about that.
That's going to go viral.
He's having a very difficult time.
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people.
We cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
His eyes are a little bit red.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban,
one of the most respected men.
He's a tough person.
He's a tough,
Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago it wasn't. Why is it blowing up?
He's proving her point. He's proving her point. She said he's out of touch. He doesn't. He's not able to grasp facts. He's not able to realize that he lost. Then he goes, one of the most respected people in the world, Viktor Orban, strongman they call him. He said we need Trump work. The authoritarian fascist from Hungary wants you back. Great.
In our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look,
He's going back to Viktor Orban. He said most respected. Yeah, according to a fascist fucking strongman.
Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president. But
we, the fascist order of the world,
you saw at a debate,
the far-right, neo-fascist order of the world, we had no problems.
He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy.
Putin, Orban, Bolsonaro, Netanyahu,
and you know
no problems.
He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because...
Oh, he just got shut down.
More to get to.
He just got shut down. Okay.
War and the hostages
Oh,
are
God.
still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent
Ask a
civilians.
question.
You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered.
Now, if she had any
1,200
fucking...
many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women.
If she had any sense of justice,
and
she'd stood up against the genocide, she could say
has a right to defend itself. We would.
that October 7th is due to Trump's actions.
Because it is also
Unfortunately, the Democrats are way too close to Trump's
innocent Palestinians have been killed.
point of view on that.
Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way
If they weren't so compromised, if they hadn't done so much sweeping for Netanyahu,
and so we will continue.
she would be able to say that it was his failed sons, failed negotiation, cutting Palestine out of the negotiations.
And
That's what got...
There must be.
That's what caused
security for the
October
Israeli
7th.
People and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran, and any threat that Iran.
Yeah, she's just saying that she's willing to get dragged into a war with Iran by Israel.
Rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
This is the most unexcusable issue for Biden and for Kamala. Obviously, Trump would be worse, but
more innocent civilians in Gaza.
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever. I know Putin very well.
She's better on Palestine than Trump. Well, yeah, Trump's the worst.
Have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people.
But she's her own worst enemy. Understand, on this issue, in this debate, she's her own worst enemy, right?
She hates Israel.
Biden's policy, the policy that she's upholding, is actually hurting her. It's both unethical and it's also harmful to her campaign.
She hates Israel. If she's
This is the problem with the Democrats, right?
Will not exist within 2 years from now, and I've been pretty good at predictions.
This is why they lose.
About that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs.
Oh my God, this is terrible. Trump's able to say something that's actually going to get some low energy voters who want
Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion.
a ceasefire, who want a secession to the genocide.
Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah. Or
That shit that he said about she hates Arabs as well, right? She's willing to get them hurt, right? Because of their shitty policy, this actually has traction.
You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now
The Democrats' biggest problem is that there's not enough difference between them and the Republicans, even when there is difference, which there is, even on this issue. He's worse, right? But because it's so close, because the Democrats aren't because the Democrats are so close to the Republicans in terms of their policy on these kind of issues, it allows him to
Distract.
fool a few people. I'm surprised she's not shoving Victor Orban down his throat. Maybe it's just because nobody really knows. Most people don't know who Victor Orban is.
And it is absolutely well known that these dictators...
Yeah, it sucks that people don't know who Viktor Orban is, because
they're so clear.
that dude's a
They can
fascist.
manipulate you with flattery.
An open,
favors.
outright fascist.
And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible.
Okay, now,
Wouldn't have happened with me.
people do know who Putin is.
Countries think that they're
And this
weak
might have been a
and
big fuck up for him.
incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question.
I don't think that anyone's
Why does Biden go in
buying...
and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe, because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with
Okay,
This is
so,
ABC News presidential debate from the National
commercial
Constitution
break,
Center
I guess?
right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
We're on a commercial break. Hungry. I could really go for some turkey. Oh my god, this is your favorite joke. Oh no.
Will continue after this.
Yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating. It's frustrating, right? As much as like there you can't like look, if there's an issue where Trump is better than the Democrats, I don't know what it is. Like, and in fact, that is to say that there isn't. There really isn't, right? In terms of his belief, in terms of his policy, the Democrats are always better, but there are a few important issues where there's just not enough difference for people to really recognize that, right? I follow this stuff assiduously, right? So I realize it. But even on stuff like Gaza, right? Biden's horrible policy on Gaza, the bear hug strategy for, I don't know, getting like stopping Netanyahu from dragging the United States down into international pariah status along with Israel is a miserable failure. The the stimulus, he had a chance to continue the stimulus. Instead, he reduced the stimulus. Now, is that because Trump's better? Is that, Trump's policy was $2,000. Biden's policy was only $1,400. I guess Trump's better on that one. No, Trump's hand was forced there. Like, I understand that. But yeah, Biden made a huge mistake by cutting that off way too early. And he did it for the fucking business class. He did it because at the end of the day, Democrats and Republicans are both beholden to donors, and donors tend to be very wealthy people. And the donors wanted American workers to get back to work, right? The only reason that we were allowed to have any sort of a lockdown, any sort of a period where there was a stimulus offered, there were an unemployment benefits were extended, all that kind of stuff. The only reason that was allowed to happen was because the corporations were protecting their assets, that being us, the workers, right? They didn't want the workforce to have a massive die off, right? But yeah, it's issues like this that get, and I have actually ran into a few voters, like a few Trump voters who, when I asked them why they're voting for Trump, they mentioned the stimulus, and it's a really sad thing because the depth that I have to go into to explain to them why they're wrong about that is not a depth that they can follow me. So I don't convince them. There's no way to reach those people, right? They got $2,000 twice under Trump, and they got $1,400 under Biden. And to them, that's proof that Trump actually cares about them, even though it's not true. And if he wouldn't have done that if he didn't have to do it. It's not like Trump's preferred policy. It's just what sort of the situation forced Trump into. And, Biden's complicity with the corporations caused him to not do the right thing there. Oh my God. Okay, she should have said she should just say ceasefire and two-state. Not much continuing funding. Not so much continuing funding the war. Yeah. The Dems have been doing so much rightward capitulation. And look, it's not a new thing either. It's been going on since the late 70s. Now they can't really stake out a significant difference between themselves and the GOP on a lot of issues. Yeah. Been laid off twice under Biden. And as have many of my colleagues, Trump has a better economy and Biden can only do so much so fast after COVID. He doesn't actually have a better economy.
Constitution Center in Philadelphia.
He has 3 years prior to the
David
lockdown.
And Lindsay Davis.
Here, we're back.
Welcome back to this historic
And that's what gives that illusion. But Obama had a better economy than Trump.
War in Ukraine. We're now
and Biden's added more jobs while Trump actually lost jobs.
The Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight.
So we're asking Trump about his Nixonian secret plan to end the Ukraine war.
To win this war.
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for $250 billion.
Trump had a better economy for most of his term, but
don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than.
But you're letting him off on that last year, and you shouldn't.
$50 billion less because Biden and you.
He lost jobs. Biden added a huge number of jobs.
They paid billions and billions.
In those 3 years that you're talking about in the beginning of the Trump administration, that was a continuation of Obama's economy. He passed one bill, and it was to cut taxes for the super rich. That didn't actually help anyone. Supply-sided economics don't work. That's been proven since the 80s.
Forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win...
He just said he'll get the war... Okay, but when he's president-elect, okay. It almost sounded like he was talking about doing a...
That war would have never happened. And in fact, when
doing like an Iran-Contra thing or
unfortunately,
Nixon's negotiations with the North Vietnamese.
When I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, "Oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation." Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war.
So he won't answer the question, is it in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win?
All of these human lives
It's a weird thing to say, though, because the way that war is going to end with a negotiation, like it's not going to be an outright victory for
as commander-in-chief
either side.
How would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different?
But the fact that he can't say that he wants Ukraine to win is actually pretty telling.
The former president, you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be...
Yeah, Chad, I wish I could get back to the economy question, because there is something to talk about there.
It's not just about Ukraine.
There's more that the Democrats needed to do, and they didn't do it. But we're on Ukraine now.
That you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator.
Yo, Vladimir Putin would eat you for lunch.
President Harris, thank you. We've heard from
oh God,
tonight, Afghanistan.
She's actually cooking.
I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier.
Oh, he's trying to come in. He's trying to come in. Oh,
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow.
Quiet, please. I don't know. Did that work as well as I'm talking now? My turn to talk.
Right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear
They really
weapons.
needed to clarify the mic policy.
And
right? She thought that...
Maybe he'll use them, and maybe...
I think she thought she would have been able to get in.
But he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that...
Yeah, you're not running against Biden is pretty strong.
...are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends.
Oh, is she mimicking Obama with her cadence?
Our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right...
Yeah, she is actually. I mean,
on a president.
It's not super... I don't think it's... So some people do this and it's cringe, like Buttigieg does this, Josh Shapiro does this.
Ensuring that there is stability and
I mean,
ensuring we stand up
It's
for
a
our
very
people
similar
and not
cadence.
sell them for the
But it doesn't
benefit
seem like
of personal
her.
flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine.
She's not like affecting Obama. She's not trying to. She doesn't seem like she's like Shapiro and
I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were.
No, actually, what got those countries to pay off was the invasion of Ukraine.
Trade and on NATO.
Look, NATO, we're talking about the amount of GDP a country uses for its military, right? And the standard for NATO is supposed to be 2% or above, right? Some nations weren't doing that because it seemed like there was nothing that they were, doing it for. It seemed like there wasn't going to be a need for their military, right?
Do you believe you bear any
And when
responsibility
Putin invaded Ukraine, things changed. People realized there is a reason to.
President Biden's decision.
So yeah, no, Trump's full of shit.
Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty.
Looks like he's
in a
starting to
combat
sweat.
zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are.
That's a good point that she made, right?
Negotiating.
He always says that he didn't start any wars. Everybody else starts wars.
He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation.
Ooh, he looks like he's getting red.
Terrorists.
I don't know if that's just the angle.
And get this. No, get
Let's see.
this. And the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not again appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged
This fella, very Obama.
members of our military, fallen soldiers.
Okay, so now we're on to the
that we must
Arlington,
uphold the strength and the respect of the United
the desecration of the grave.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations
thank
with the
you.
Taliban.
So, if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head
Abdul,
of the Taliban.
my
He's
good
still
friend
the head of the
Abdul.
Taliban. And I told Abdul,
Don't shoot those
do it anymore.
American
Do it
troops anymore.
Problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed.
He's lying about that.
An agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo.
He's wrong about that.
It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left.
He gave me a beautiful rug.
$80 worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't
Now,
know
I
she was
wonder-
black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black.
So compared to the
Why do you believe it's
Compared to the Dana Bash debate,
on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I
asking.
don't know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me.
they're asking the questions that I find interesting, but most
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I
news media would
tragedy. that
try to
we
do a
have
one-for-one.
someone who wants to be president, who
They are
has
giving her a lot of good
the course of his career
questions, like, or giving him
attempted to use
questions
race
that
to
are bad,
divide the
right?
American people.
And I don't know if
You
this
know,
will
I
get
do
read
believe
as
that the vast majority
them
of
being
us know
on
that
her
that's
side,
more
or,
important than what separates us, and
but
we
it
don't
is
want
actually, I mean, this is
kind of
like
opponent
neutrality.
just constantly trying to divide us, and especially
There's
by
more
race. And
bullshit
let's
for him to
remember,
explain than there is for her to explain. And they're actually making him explain it, which is kind of amazing. I just don't know.
buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad.
We're talking about the Central Park 5. Yeah.
The execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands.
I feel like she should have said deserve better than this, but whatever.
We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams?
Did she point out? Oh, no, she said innocent. She said innocent. Yeah, Central Park 5.
People's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your third time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been.
So he hasn't interrupted her,
country, and they come up with things.
but he cuts in for an extra
going back
comment.
many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5. They admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up, Lindsay.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life, to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy, please.
Oh my God, they're letting him just do whatever he wants.
To confiscate everybody's gun.
President
Yeah,
Trump.
shut his mic off. Shut his fucking...
Fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's
Thank you,
what
Mr.
her
President.
plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond
President
because
Trump,
no, the
President
former
Trump.
president has said
No, I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry. We're
I just
gonna
need to
move on,
respond
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said.
Trump.
No, oh, that was so bad. That was so bad. They let him jump back in, like a second time, right?
Known as Obamacare.
And then she tries to address something that he said, and they're like, no, we gotta move on. It's easier to move on through her because she's a nice person. He's an asshole, and they're getting steamrolled.
9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care. Always was. It's not very good today.
The only thing that's lousy about it is it doesn't do single payer.
We're going to do it, and we're going to replace it. But remember this. I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good.
Oh, he's so full of shit. He tried to repeal it. He tried to repeal it. He would have repealed it if it wasn't for John McCain.
Good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a
Ooh,
plan.
I have concepts of a plan.
President right
You're
now.
running for president, asshole.
We come up with something. I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great
John McCain,
who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability.
Trump is lucky that they're not using the profile.
I don't have to tell the people watching tonight. You remember
There's one camera angle that's like it has him on a profile. He looks really bad. Somehow he's redder too.
If someone was a breast cancer survivor,
You can see that he's got this weird arched stance. That's real apparent.
President, and we, over the last 4 years, have strengthened the Affordable Care Act. We have allowed, for the first time, Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it.
Vice President Harris, thank
in terms
you.
of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot
She made a mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare.
I think he's mad about the John McCain thing.
Won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to give. People are paying privately for insurance.
These fucking
and made money, and they want to have
this debate team, like, they're gutless, right? They're letting him steamroll them.
6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue.
Like, you know what they need to do? If they're going to do the mute thing, then the moderator should have the mute button. And when they say that you're done, you get muted. You're done.
Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight.
And they don't. They try to talk them into shutting up. And with Kamala, because she's, you know, has manners, they're able to do that. With Trump, they're not.
Climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather.
Please talk about the windmills and the birds,
home insurance, or it's being jacked up.
the batteries and the sharks. There's so much fruitful shit here.
Of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in
Ms. Katonic asks, can she needle him to a crash ending? Batteries and sharks would be great for that.
The ABC News.
Yeah, like the more you can get, like, so here's my strategy. If I'm Kamala Harris, right? I'm trying to throw things.
Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements from Vice President Harris. We begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on
Okay, so
the past.
this is the
And
closing
it doesn't take
remarks?
us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common.
Thank you for the good tight.
And we
Woodstock
can chart
99?
a new way forward. And a
Well,
vision of
I
that
think of like
includes
television watchers as being like, I don't know,
understanding the
7-year-olds.
aspirations, the dreams, the hopes,
Or like,
the ambition of the American people, which is why
you know what I mean?
intend
Like
to
65 to
create
70 years
an
old.
opportunity economy, invest
Maybe
in
that's more
small
like the Fox
businesses,
News
in
audience.
new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor,
The original Woodstock was 55 years ago?
or a witness, are you
So
on
like
public
boomers,
record?
right? It's like
The
baby
only thing
boomer,
I've ever
literal
asked
baby
them,
boomers.
Are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for
I guess I'm surprised at how much like Gen X stuff
on what we can do over
there
the
is
next 10
on
and 20 years
network
to
television
build
rather
back
than
up our country by investing
literal
right
boomer
now in
generation stuff.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of
Yeah,
division.
Trump was president for 4 years. Why didn't he do this stuff? Exactly. That's the comeback.
We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they laugh. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's
He is sweaty. He's actually sweaty now.
going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like
Either that or his nose is dripping. I can't tell.
power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire
Maybe his Sudafed ran out.
military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the
That's it?
history
Okay.
of our country.
It would have been awesome if they had had some back and forth on that, but
Debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world.
Good night.
Here at ABC News. Good night.